All right, guys and gals and Statler. Hi, Stat. We hope that your week has gone great, and we're so glad you're here. An exciting day here. I'm excited to see all of our grads and all their stuff put on display, and we're excited to celebrate them today, and so glad that they're here and their families are here and that you're with us today. In class this morning, I know some of you haven't been with us that are here. So we've been going through a series called, Well, This is Awkward. And we're talking about the awkward, the uncomfortable, the essential challenge of kingdom life. All of these different aspects of what it means to be the church and what it means to truly follow Jesus and what that looks like and the challenges of that and the uncomfortable positions that often puts us in. So we've talked about quite a bit. And last week, if you were here, you remember that we talked about awkward diversity. And so thinking about this week, I thought, man, it's weird to talk about this topic, and really all of our topics deserve more than 1 week, but this one is one that I can't just drop in your lap, we chat about it, and then we move on. You know what I mean? This one needs kind of a 2.0. It needs a second discussion, a follow-up discussion, because we talked about a lot and how we can strive to look more like the kingdom of God and how we can strive to be more inclusive and more open. And we looked at a few verses here, and I'll just remind you of those. Ephesians 2:13 says, But now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. So Paul there talking about how we are all aliens, and the blood of Christ has redeemed us and brought us near to him. And then you get the beautiful picture in Revelation, time and time again, of this. And here's what it says. After this, I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So we talked about this idea of if God is reconciling all people, all nations, all tribes, all tongues, all races together, shouldn't we be striving to bring heaven to earth here and now? Shouldn't this be partially our goal? And again, we said there's no explicit command in the Bible that you have to be, extremely diverse, but if we are following Christ and if we are striving to be the church, then this will be a natural outcome of us following Christ. So we talked about a lot. We also talked about a couple principles, and that's where I wanted to come back to today, and I want us to flesh out and really talk about some ways in which we can fulfill these principles. Because like I said, this isn't just a topic that I can drop in your lap, we talk about it, and then we move on. If we do, we're filling time. And I don't want to just fill time. I don't want to just come to church, sit, listen, feel good about ourselves, pat ourselves on the back, and leave. We really need to implement these things. We really need to put these things into practice. We really need to sit kind of like a war room and talk about what are we going to do now? Now, what do we do? And so the principles that we highlighted, principle number 1, a church has a particular responsibility to its local community. Okay, so this is part of our vision. This is absolutely a part of our vision, to be a big part of this community, to reach out to this community, to serve this community. And principle number 2 falls in line with that. A church will ideally reflect its community. And so ideally, a church will look like the community within which it's located if it's serving that community. Do you agree with that? That's just the natural, that should be the natural, that should be what happens. And so we talked about, I'm trying to remember everything we talked about. I can't remember everything. But we talked about how it's not necessarily your mission to go to India, and I just use India as an example, but it's not necessarily your mission to go to India. That's all great and good, and I'm glad that we do that. But our first and primary mission is to serve the community that surrounds us. So, do you agree that we should first and foremost serve the community around us rather than those far and wide across the earth. Do you agree with that? I need to make sure we're on the same page before we move forward with the next steps, okay? Why do you think that's important?
These are people you're able to see, communicate with, like our pantry out there. We may not see them, but we know we're helping that community. And we start there, not that we would always do worldwide evangelism, but these
Right.
are folks that can touch and feel and deeply.
Right, so they're people that can benefit directly every day from the ways that we serve. Why is this important? Why are these principles important? I didn't come up with these. I read these in a book, but yeah, Jay.
Well, our command is to make disciples as we are going. So it's,
Yes.
and I think I don't know, I think sometimes we miss the point by trying to go to places that we don't actually live, and even in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically the people that you rub elbows with, that you have a relationship with, are the people that you're going to bring to Christ.
Right.
It's not really going to work if you're going to a neighborhood that you don't live in, that you don't know them, that they don't know you. And so it has to be people that you, as you are going, that you make disciples with. And so where we find ourselves, those are the people that we're going to actually draw to relationship with God. It
Okay.
doesn't work when you go to a neighborhood that you have no relationship with and you try to win them.
Yeah, I've knocked a lot of doors in neighborhoods that I had no relation to, and you're exactly right. The success of that was very minimal, if any at all, right?
So I guess when I've been thinking a lot more about this, when we think of church, do we think of the whole church as in the whole body, right? Because if we were to look at Hot Springs and we looked at all the churches,
Yes.
it's a mix of the whole community. Not obviously one individual church doesn't show the exact community.
Right.
So are we more a part of the whole church to reflect the whole community, and we're trying our best to bring people to church that we have relationships with to get them in the doors, right?
Yes.
Versus our individual church reflecting exactly all of the community.
Yeah, something to think about for sure. And it's something that we need to, as a church, as a body of Christ, we need to think about and define before we move forward. What is our end goal? What is our scope within the community? And what role do we play within the larger Christian community here in Hot Springs, Adrian?
Church we came from over in North Carolina purposely set about and hired a white and a black minister.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was exactly this, to be able to bring all different kinds of people, you know. So, I mean, they purposely set out to do that, and they did. So that's one way, because we are never gonna be, well, I don't know, maybe not, but we're never gonna be able to go into a black community and try to convince somebody or invite somebody. We can invite them, you know, but chances are they're not gonna come, because like you said, we don't live there, they don't know us. So I guess that's one way.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I'm sure benefits came from that, and I love the initiative there. But to me, this isn't about becoming and following this ideal and these principles here. Isn't about we need a certain number of this race and a certain number of this race and a certain number of this race. It's more of a, and I know that's not what that church was about. I'm just saying that mindset becomes, we don't want to be diverse just for diversity's sake, but truly serving the community around us. One church that I kind of follow and have read about, they did a really interesting thing. Y'all can give me your thoughts on it, but what they do is, so they take a map and they draw a big circle, and you can't, according to their leadership, you can't be a member of that congregation unless you live inside that circle. And so, a lot of people were commuting to this congregation because they liked it so much. It was in line with, what their lifestyles are like. And so instead of serving in the communities that they lived in, they were going to this church and serving with this church and basically consuming what this church was offering and neglecting their own communities. And so they made it kind of an unspoken rule: unless you live within this area, you are not a part of this church. And they call it localized church, is what they call it. And so what they found happening, and it's quite fascinating to me, is their membership skyrocketed, and the people that were members there took a big ownership of it, because it was this: we're going to work, we're going to play, everything we do will be inside this circle. And therefore, like Jay's talking about, as you're going, you make disciples, you talk about Jesus, you spread the gospel as you're going, and you do everything within this community, within this area. And I thought, man, that's extremely interesting. It's extremely interesting. Now, I'm not proposing that we do that. I would get a lot of really upset people, and I would, it would be brand new, and it would be really different, and we would be starting from scratch in a lot of ways. So I'm not proposing we do that at all. Today, I'll get your comment here in just a second, Jay. Today, I want to talk about ways in which, whether you live in the immediate Hot Springs area or not, ways in which this congregation can do this. Okay, Jay?
Mine was a question. In that example, when they were outside the circle, did they encourage and help them to plant outside that circle?
Yes. So it's a planting church model, and it's a localized, so you start a new church in this community, this, so on and so forth. Yes. Yeah. It's not a see you later, we don't want anything to do with you. Right. Yeah. So, before I walk through mine, what are ways you believe would be beneficial for us as a congregation? Remember, we're not just talking to fill time. Really, let's talk and let's think about this. What are ways that we could reflect this community? What are ways that this community, this church could serve this community and start to reflect this community more? I think we do. How can we do that better? Yeah, Sherry.
See a lot of homelessness
Yeah.
in this community, so figure out a way, a ministry to homeless people, to maybe be inclusive of this community.
Yeah, the homeless population.
That's hard. I mean, if you want to talk about the outcasts,
Mhm.
there's the ultimate outcast.
Right.
And I see them, I don't know what to do, honestly. I don't know how to help.
Yeah. And I've kind of been told that it's encouraged by some areas of people, by some different people. It's encouraged. They're brought in. Now, what the truth to that? I don't have a clue, but it doesn't mean we can't figure out something in some way to serve them. Paul?
There is enough supplies for people in Hot Springs at this point. There's enough food, there's enough clothes. The question is are we involved in those particular pair of ministries,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better way to put it?
Right?
There's enough for people to have. We don't need to provide those kinds of things for people. In Hot Springs, it is very much well taken care of. The
Yeah.
question is, my question is not, do people have enough stuff? Are they fed well? Are they sheltered well? Are they clothed well? That's not the point. The point is relationships.
Okay.
Loneliness is a huge problem, and I think that's more important
Right, so this is going to have to suffice, okay? And my handwriting, y'all have seen my handwriting before, but, so number 2, I'll get to number 1 here in just a second. Number 2 is identify community assets. And I know you can't read that, but yeah. So identify community assets and, think about how we can use the assets that are already there. But I like what Paul's saying. How do we provide that relationship by using those assets? How do we build those relationships with people in our community? I mean, you think about our community, I would broaden our community to the greater Hot Springs area, especially within city limits, and think about how we can use the systems that are already in place, serve in those systems, but build those relationships, Jay.
I was gonna say, we have done that and do that.
Yes.
That's what Samaritan Ministry is about. We've helped
Right.
Habitat for Humanity, Potter's Play. We've been involved in a lot of those things and probably will in the future. But I would say, as far as the homeless thing goes, Arkansas DHS came down and said, do not give the beggars a dime. You hinder us from being able to help them.
Yes,
Believe me, as couriers, we know all of them, we see them every day.
yes,
We even have tried to help them and they cuss us out because all they're wanting, they're panhandling, they're wanting money. They're wanting drug money.
right.
They're not really wanting help. But programs like, Potter's Clay or Samaritan Ministries or Habitat or whatever, I mean, those are ways to help people. And to stop at a curb and give someone $1 really just makes the problem worse.
Right, and the homeless community here is one small aspect of, I think, where we need to put our vision and where we need to focus on. Somebody raise your hand over here. Justin.
My disclaimer before I start talking is, when I say this, I'm talking to myself as well. It's real easy, speaking about the homeless and seeing them out and about. It's real easy to pull up and say, that's not legit. That's, I've done it 100 times myself. You pull up and you go, that guy's got a better phone than me and 6 packs of cigarettes in that.
Yeah.
He's got more money sitting right there in front of him than I do. And I guess my point is that it's a short distance between your head and your heart. Unless you got it right in your heart, it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
When you have a calling or you feel that tug on your heart, you should be able to respond to that and ask for, and expect nothing in return.
Right.
But I think the big challenge is maybe going back and following up on that. If you see somebody and you help them out in the community, then try to follow up with it and find out, a week later or a day later or whatever the case may be
Yeah.
with that person.
I agree. And if, you feel the tugging at your heart, I would encourage you fully to do what you feel you need to do. Handing somebody $1 out of a car window is almost impossible to reconnect with that person. That's why I have number 1, if my marker will work, which is, marker's not going to work, but it is walk and talk. Walk and talk. Like if we're going to worship and gather in this community, do we know this community? Our neighbor at the top of the hill, I was out walking our property one day. I didn't even have to go off our property to meet our neighbor who was sitting on our property, who had immense needs and still has immense needs. She's not homeless, but she has no utilities on because she can't afford them. And she literally lives 100 yards from where we worship. Just walk and talk. And we do stuff like that. I'm not beating you up. I'm trying to further this and encourage this and develop a plan. Again, it's War Room Day, okay? We're involved with this fire station down here in various capacities. We do stuff there. But do we ever go down this way? Do we ever move down this way? We've done things with, the children's homes down there and things like that. What about the school? How do we get involved with Hot Springs School? And even Lakeside and Lake Hamilton and things like that. But Lake Hamilton and Lakeside are a little out of our area here, our immediate area. Granted, we have resources in both those schools. We have resources in Hot Springs as well that I feel like we're not tapping into as much as we tap into the schools that look like us. Can I just be blunt? Amanda?
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I asked,
I'm listening.
I don't know if Katie and Brad are here, but I asked Katie, like, I think it's been a couple months ago now, like, hey, is there a need, like, are there needs? She works for Hot Springs School, and I feel
Right.
like, as a church, it's really good to, I mean, I guess that would be, like, community asset, like, the places that we go and the people that we interact with, we have a lot of people who are very involved in different aspects of this community, but having a teacher there, like, I feel like there's a need at that school, because I know we do a lot of things with Lakeside, because we have so many of our kids go there and teachers and things there, but she was like, oh yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
Of course, we haven't gotten together to talk about it, but I feel like she's a resource, and I know there are others, but I think, and then, her husband teaches at NPC, like, what are some things with the college that we can, I think, like, kind of to, Ryan was asked a good question, like, are we talking about the church as a whole, in Hot Springs, and there are a lot of churches doing a lot of things, maybe that, maybe there is an area where there's a church serving in that area, and so that's maybe not a need, but I think looking at what is a need in our community that's not being met, and I think
Yes.
it kind of reminds me of what Paul was saying about the church last week, that they kind of were like, what is a need? I don't even remember how you said it, but like they kind of figured out that domestic violence was an issue in that area, and so maybe looking at like what is the need in the surrounding, like even the very much surrounding community.
Yes.
And is that need being met? What could we do to meet that need? Whether it's at the school or at some of these, I don't know. I feel like we are. I think we're located in the Hot Springs School District, aren't we? Like where we are right here.
Yeah. We got to be. It's right next door. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I think that would be something. And maybe there are things being done that I don't know about, but I think it'd be good to look at like what is something that what is a need that we could meet.
Yeah, and I would like for us to zone in this morning and talk about our immediate community needs right here. Ashley, and then we'll hop around.
I mean, I may be totally off base, but a lot of times I feel like, and this isn't here necessarily, but a lot of the congregations that I've worshiped at before, they get spread into so many different ministries that they're really not able to focus and do good in one or two ministries, if that makes sense. And by do good, I'm sure they're reaching people in all those places. But, to be the church that's known for fostering kids
Yes.
and doing that, or be the church that's known for helping the homeless in all different ways, or whatever that is. If you double down in one or two areas versus spread out over 6, 7, 8 different areas, then you're taking your concept that you said earlier, limiting the people who can come to that church from that community. You're basically doing that, but you're doubling down in that community, if that makes sense. You're doing it the other way around.
Right. So let me put number 3, because you are speaking directly to them. So, do you know the 80-20 rule? Anybody know the 80-20 rule? So you take
No.
Okay.
90-10.
Huh?
90-10.
You want to go 90-10?
Who's been there?
All right. Well, let's shoot for 80-20. Let's shoot for 90-10. Let's hope we land at 80-20. Okay. You prioritize, kind of like Ashley's saying, and you're following right along with what I want to talk about. So we prioritize. We assess our community's needs. We prioritize what is the greatest need in our immediate community, and we pour 80% of our energy into the top 20% of what we prioritize. Or as Paul is pushing for, 90% of our energy into the top 10% of...
Oh, I thought that was the wrong stat, my bad.
No, you're good. Yeah, I don't know.
That church stat where 20% of the people do 80% of the work.
Oh, no, that's probably true, too. No. Yeah, you're good. No.
Could that be the same thing, though?
Church stat, business school. Yeah. Can you read business school? Look at that. Yeah. So it's assess the community's needs. What is our immediate community's needs? How do we prioritize that? Because it is easy to have 50,000 different things going on, and we do have a lot going on, a lot of great things. We're not going to kill those things, but how do we begin to serve this community and begin to reflect this community? Jay, or Bridget, and then Jay.
Okay, well, being at a school, I do know that focusing on one school I think would be beneficial because, and you can get, well, school district, because like in Hot Springs, they have a number of elementary schools, and then they have a junior high and high school. So even though they're all in the same school system, they don't have the same contact. So like a counselor
Right.
at each school, that having a contact like that would be good. And there are so many ways that a church or a group of people can assist because these kids need clothes, shoes, food, after-school care. There are ways to help out with after-school programs or just supporting the teachers. There's a lot that can be done in a school,
Yeah.
just as volunteers.
And we need to tap into that and structure that some way, somehow, and figure out how we do that now. Because I do think our school is our priority. And when I say our school, I'm talking about the school closest to our building.
Because kids are hungry and they don't have clothes and they don't have electricity, they don't have water, they don't have anybody taking care of them at home. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be helped in the school.
Yes, and you help the parents through that as well. You get to know the parents. And this isn't some, and I know you all know this, but we're not trying to get them in the doors. We're simply trying to serve the community. We're simply trying to be Christ in this community. Jay, then Sherry.
I was just gonna say, and we've known for years, like, one of the greatest needs of any school, but especially just downhill, is after school.
Right.
We're just like in walking distance, to take care of kids till the parents can get off work, but it's a huge investment, and so it's never been done. But it's like, one of the greatest needs for almost any school is something for the kids to do, which really helps to make them a part of this church and comfortable here, and maybe want to come here and all that kind of stuff. But it's a huge investment of time and responsibility and effort and cost and everything else. But it's a natural for where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to think about and talk about how do we invest in that? How do we move forward with that, Paul?
Didn't, at Trunk or Treat, what was the name of that place with the kids that showed up?
So the houses are right down next to Kimmery Park.
I mean, they weren't even,
Yeah, they brought a busload.
right, but they weren't even like, were they asked to come?
Yes.
Oh, okay, my God.
Yeah.
That was my point. I thought they came just because they knew that.
No, we
they knew you were
structured,
having a trunk or treat for
and this was
special needs children.
Patrick's idea,
Okay.
amazing idea.
Yeah.
We structured trunk or treat around special needs kids. It was, and then Jess Otwell helped a ton, making the environment conducive for them, and it was a really great thing. Yeah,
I get them coming here, but
we went there as well as small groups. But yeah, how do we keep this rolling? Yeah, Jason.
One need that I know that was really, when I did pest control, and I went into a lot of these houses around here, some of these kids, from the school, they live with bed bugs,
Mm-hmm.
roaches, fleas, just nasty. You got all these medical problems with them because they live in such nasty. One thing that I've tried to get my brother-in-law to do, who owns a pest control company, I tried to get him to every once in a while, these people that can't afford to get their bed bugs or other problems taken care of, to spray it, just do it for charity or whatever. He never would. And I think that's a way, because you can go into someone's house and talk to them, have that taken care of. They're not, it's just something that would help and get you in the door. I think that's a really good way to serve.
Yeah, I think that's a creative way to serve. I think that's really good. Let me write that down, because I do want us to get to, hold on, let me write this.
If we could just pay for the services or something to have, if you know someone that's got, living in those conditions, to have it cleaned up or something, pay for it.
Right, I like that a lot. So the last two, filter and prioritize, and then church culture, we make adjustments, we make small adjustments, and as we assess the community needs, we think about, where's the gap between the community needs and the church's offerings? Like, where's that gap, and how do we fill that gap? And I definitely think that's one way we can fill that gap. I also saw something, and then I'll get your comment, Rick. It said, somebody was talking about call up the school and pay off a kid's lunch card, or whatever you call it, pay off their lunch expense. Yeah,
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, a lot of kids get free lunch though.
Yeah, they're
Right.
already in that
They're already
category, they're getting free lunch.
okay.
free lunches.
And you're not seeing them and making a relationship there. Like, if you're just calling and making a payment, I'm not saying that that's not a nice thing to do, but I think if our goal is relationship and bridging that and showing them like the hands and feet of Jesus, like literally like being that.
Okay, Rick?
I'm hearing a lot of speculation about what the needs are.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we should consider a different approach in talking to the school administration, let them know what our intent is, what we'd like to try to accomplish, and request a church teacher conference where, because these teachers know these children and the families intimately. They know
Yes.
what their needs are, they know the problems, they know the conditions they're living in. They know these students intimately. And rather than us speculate as to what their needs are, if we can have an audience with the teachers and talk specifics about what their needs are and gather that information, then we can come back as a church and talk about what we can do and how we would do it.
I think that's a great idea.
I love that.
Those Samaritan Ministries, they have to think about their needs and all that, and so as we do those things with them, that they have that, then it's no guesswork.
Right. So at our old church, we had a lot of connections with the school that was literally right beside our building, and then schools throughout Norman, Oklahoma. And we did and I thought we could do this here, but I don't know what y'all done in the past. We got the names from the schools of needy families, and we got together a turkey, Thanksgiving meal, gifts, and we went and delivered that meal to those families the week of Thanksgiving. And we made some really tight connections that way.
I
Jake?
was gonna say, we've talked to schools before, and so it's like, what is our goal versus what is their goal? And we did do this, but there was one school that they needed playground equipment, so we paid to put playground equipment in. But again, that doesn't really achieve our goal.
Right, of relationship, yeah.
Right, and so we want to kind of make it where it's, because they may have a list of things they want that may involve something like that. It's really not where our aim is.
Yes, I would definitely be more interested in how can we continually serve you? How can we be a benefit to you and
And develop relationships.
develop relationships and keep this relationship going throughout our lives and your life? Jerry, were you raising your hand?
I was just saying, one of the things about our community is our community is a tourist community.
Mm-hmm.
And at any given weekend, we may have 10 to 20% of the people who are spending the night in Hot Springs are not Hot Springs residents.
Right.
If we're gonna make ourselves look like a community, that's a group we can service. I know there are many people who have a second home here. They live somewhere else, and they attend here regularly. It seems to me we could do a better job of reaching out and befriending those people.
Yeah.
There are a couple of families here who started as visitors.
And liked it so much they moved here,
They
yeah.
liked it so much they moved here. And
Yeah.
So I think visitors to crime and gambling and alcohol.
Right.
It seems like to me a church would be wise to try to service the spiritual needs of those people as well.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, we already reflect the visitors, because a lot of you come and go as you please, yeah. Sharon, and then Sydney.
One of the, speaking of the school thing in this, one of the things the church in the village does,
Mhm.
they have food packs. A lot of kids, once they go home, they don't have school lunches, they don't have food for the weekend.
Right,
And they do a thing that it's amazing. And I don't know what kind of list you could get from the school of those that are really needy. And,
Yeah.
and send home, send a bag of food home with them.
right,
There's a, in Count Lake, there's a man that puts that together.
I'm sorry.
There's a man on campus that does those food bags every week.
That's another finally need.
He's like a,
Right.
he's like a volunteer, he might get paid, I don't know, but he's there all the time, and he's really just a volunteer worker. I mean, most, and he's not doing any teaching or anything.
Sydney?
Where is the food coming from?
Probably churches, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when we lived in Jonesboro, we were in a very similar situation where our church was right beside an elementary school, and it's very similar to Hot Springs, is they were magnetized, and our church was in charge of like one elementary school, and then like Valley View Church of Christ was in charge of another elementary school, and they provided like their food. They did like their food things, and every Friday kids would take home a bag of food for the weekend. And they did like their Christmas Alliance, they did like our angel tree, they did, I mean, our church was in charge of anything that that school needed, we took care of that as their church. And so, that's just, another thing that they did too, were people who were retired and wanted to like go into the school and do anything with that. There, y'all, Arkansas is a low state for education, I'm sure that's not surprising, but our reading scores are not the best. And one way that the church volunteered to come and like do extra tutoring times, or they did extra things to pull kids out, and it could have been during school. And then our church also did like an after-school thing at the school, so parents didn't have to worry about transportation of like getting them somewhere else. And so there would be volunteers that they did things at their school, like they went to the school and kept them there till 5.
I love that. Doug and then Roger.
I just want to say
Yeah.
that me, working with the council, getting to know the people, fulfilling those student needs,
Mhm.
tutoring, and everybody, it's kind of, everybody said that, to me, that's the core. Because we're dealing with, the schools here, Hot Springs, city of Hot Springs, they have a lot of generational problems, and it just keeps going down.
Right,
Immediate needs. Kids, you see it, you read the paper or watch TV, the children just, they're expecting.
right,
And a lot of people, I don't care what race you go to, through the last couple, 3 years, scores, they're
right. Doug?
Well, I was just gonna say, when we were in Plano, Susan was really involved in an organization called Assistance League, and they worked with counselors at the local, in the particular area. There was also an Assistance League over in Fort Worth, of course, that's a huge area, but they did local, and we would go, I would even, at some of the husbands, because the ladies, women, okay, to be politically correct,
Yeah, I think the counselors at the school is going to be a really good contact point for sure. Paul?
So our target audience is kids. I mean, is that what we're trying to nail down?
I
Because
think,
apparently-
I think your target audience is kids for the most part.
Well, I mean,
As far as serving and I think our target audience is the school.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying, like, more like, apparently this church really likes kids and.
Apparently, yeah. Kids are just special, yeah.
They're, right, but, you know, that's how your target audience is those kids. And eventually what will happen, kind of like what Ashley was saying, you do that one thing really well. We don't need to be a jack of all trades.
No.
We just need to be an ace up the sleeve.
Right.
And what you do is you hone in on that, and everything tends to revolve around that, and you will change an entire neighborhood.
Absolutely. And I would really, again, today's Bible class is not really a Bible class, and you probably already picked up on that. It's just different, but we need to do times like this. I really would like to see, you know, every ministry we put forth, every activity we put forth, serve whatever our primary focus is in some capacity. We can keep doing all the things that we're doing, but how do we pour into this? How does Create Camp, I always call it Create Camp, how does Camp Create serve this need? You know what I mean? How does everything that we do pour into this in some shape, form, or fashion? We're out of time. Debbie?
I just want to say this because in my past life, I was with a food manufacturing company, and I know nationally there are food bank organizations, there are manufacturers of all kinds of goods that have overruns or seconds. They need to reduce their inventory, and they will donate.
Yeah.
So if we have people we have a shoe manufacturing place here in Hot Springs, Monroe.
Yeah.
We have baking companies, poultry companies, and if you had corporate contacts, we could get help as far as if we get this thing rolling, that we could really serve a lot of needs and help our treasury as well by reaching out.
Yeah.
Even start our own food bank.
I would really like to keep this conversation going, not let it die here, as we think about how do we fulfill these two principles as
People aren't projects.
people aren't projects.
People aren't projects.
But we definitely need to keep talking about this, and I'm out of time. All right, love you. Bye.